Just going over the table of contents. So today we'll have an overlook of introduction to dimensional engineering. So what are the aspects you need to learn before you get into the industry, and then overview of the fundamentals. So what are the key skill sets the companies will be looking at when you go for the interviews or when you apply for job positions which require understanding of dimensional aspects, and then the evolution in the field. So, what are the upcoming technological advancements happening, which I'm aware of? So, we'll discuss about that. And in the end, so what are the job opportunities? Like, who should be looking at learning these skills so that they can grow in their domains? So, first of all, like, what do dimension engineers do? Right. So, dimensional engineers in any organization make sure the products are built to precision and accuracy with respect to design specifications. So what do I mean? What do I mean by that? So if you look at any products around us, be it any cell phone or the car you drive, or the TV screen or the mobile phone which you are looking, which you are interacting through, so or any product which has been built using two or more unique parts, right? So they've been attached together to bring in a product. So the attachments and the design specifications, right? So these are all designed by a designer, and they have been brought into realization by a dimensional engineer. So when you buy a product, what do you look at, right? So if you look into the picture on the right side, you're looking at a panel of a vehicle car, right? So there's a gap and a flush. So if the gap is more than that, so the consumer will have a issue with that. So he will say, "Oh, I'm not interested in this product. So this is a defect." So making the product right according to design specification. So this is a responsibility of a design dimensional engineer in a company. So what does the consumer perceive in the external aspect, that is fit and finish of a product, right? So this is the end product of a dimensional engineer. So dimensional engineer assesses gap, flush, surface finish. So these are the aspects which we look at in the product design. So what are the tools and skills dimensional engineer should possess? So the first one is dimensional geometrical dimensioning and tolerancing. That is commonly known as GD&T. So in GD&T, it's a language which engineers speak and express. So if you want to express communicate any design intent. So you need to talk in terms of engineering specs, which is understood globally. So that is the language called GD&T. And then you need to know more about metrology. So the metrology is a study of measurements, right? So different tools are used to measure the products. So you need to know which tool needs to be used to measure what kind of feature or a product. So there are different set of tools, measurement parameters, the size, scale, precision, accuracy. So these are all the different aspects when you decide on which tool to use and how to measure. So this is a study. There's a whole study behind metrology. So in any large production houses like automotive, aerospace, they will have a metrology lab. So why do they call a lab? Is they will have high precision equipments inside the labs. So which requires some require air conditioning, some requires the dust the air quality should be of certain precision, so that the measurements are accurate. So because ultimately the engineers, they look at the data which metrology lab provides them. So they take the manufacturing decisions based on what is the measurement data which has been measured in metrology lab. So there is a whole study around that sector. And then next one, we look at dimensional variation analysis. So this is a computer software based analysis. So this is to just give a brief idea. So this is like virtually building any product even before it goes into production. So if you say you want to build a cell phone, right, a mobile phone, so you have a design in mind. So even before you go to a manufacturing plant and say I want to manufacture, you can digitally build it and perceive like how it looks, how it feels. Not like digitally, like empirically. That is there are the softwares like 3DCS, VSA. So using these softwares, like we dimensionally build them virtually to see how the end product looks like based on the GD&T we have designed. And the fourth one is statistical process control. So SPC, uh, how it's usually called, it's used to analyze data to make sense of how the build process is going on. So in multiple stages of manufacturing, so you get data, right? So if you're building like 100 parts, you measure 10 parts. So and then you need to analyze and get a sense of what data is suggesting you, right? Are you building according to spec or it's out of specification? So what is the where is the culprit? So you need to root cause, right? So these to do all this investigative process, so you need to know have the knowledge of statistical process control. These all the aspects, right? So if when you get to an idea of all these aspects, you can I think you can you're ready to enter the dimensional engineering field. Have this knowledge. I mean, you might be curious like where is this applicable? Which industries are these engineers hired? Or where are these skills being applied currently? So the most important sectors or sectors which hire the most are automotive, medical device manufacturing, electronics, and aerospace, and many other manufacturing. But these are the most important sectors. So I have just put in some logos of some important companies. I guess most of them might know, like Philips Medical Systems, General Motors, Airbus, which manufactures most of our airlines. Airbus, including even Boeing, hires and dimension engineers, and then Apple. We know how they make beautiful phones. LG, Samsung, BMW. So, but to put into perspective, like any company which is involved in mass manufacturing and where precision is required, where the end product needs to be very precise, where the consumer looks at the external appeal. So, whenever a consumer looks, he looks at how the product is appealing to him, right? So, there are certain craftsmanship requirements for that. So to make that in real sense, so dimensional engineers come into play. So the craftsmanship, he crafts it, right? He crafts in a clay model or he wood model, right? And then you need to, when it comes to manufacturing the same, with same specifications, so you need to apply certain skills of mathematics, physics. So this is where dimensional engineering comes into play. So when bringing it to an idea to an actual product, so this transition, right? So that's where dimension engineers come, and they're applied in all these sectors. Many companies beyond borders in all geographies. I mean, Asia, Africa, Europe, America. Companies across the globe are using all these same set of skills. So why we do these studies, right? So dimensional engineer, why this? So there's somebody who designs it, and directly it might go to manufacturing. So what is the use? What is the application of dimensional engineers? So there are many advantages. I will make an attempt to just highlight the most salient features of applying dimensional engineering in manufacturing. So the first one is so we have you get an access to a universal language where you can communicate between designers, manufacturers, craftsmanship, suppliers. So GD&T, it's like an English. It's like any other language. So I'm speaking English. So you can make sense out of what I'm saying only if you know the language that is English, right? If you're a computer programmer, so if you know if something is being programmed in C programming, Python, right? You should know the syntax. Only then you will know what it will do when you run the program. So similar way, GD&T is a universal language. So all the engineers across the globe, they come to a consensus that they will interpret something in the similar way what it is being said in the standard. So they have made a standard, and then all the engineers follow that standard to interpret what is being communicated via GD&T. So this is very powerful tool. Like it takes away any room for confusions, right? So for instance, if I'm working in a MNC which is based in India, so I'm working with one of my colleagues in Canada or America or in Russia, right? So he says, "Hey Akash, I'm looking at your drawing. Like you're saying this." So he won't be asking me, "What do you mean when you mention this symbol? What do you mean by you when you say plus or minus 0.1?" So he already knows what I mean when I say that. So it takes away the room for any assumptions. Say, oh, maybe I thought you said this. So it takes away that, because everything is being said and done in the standard. So that's been followed like the ultimate, the ultimate reference, which all the engineers will refer to. So this helps in better communication universally. So that's why it's important. And the second one, it saves time and money. So the companies apply all these principles. They adopt these skill sets which Dimensional Engineer offers, because it helps them save money as well as time. When I say time, it helps in saving time when you simulate actual manufacturing process in the computer before it even goes to manufacturing. The company saves time here, because if we say the product development life cycle is 1 year, right? So the design phase is like 6 months. For 6 months for design, and the next 6 months will be like manufacturing, trial, prototyping. So the first 6 months he can cut short to 4 months if he does simulation. I'm just giving a rough idea. So this is how he saves time. When he saves time, he saves money, because time is money, right? I mean, he has to pay to all the employees, to all the resources which has been consumed while the product development life cycle. Most companies adopt these skill sets, these skills, this is all the tools to save time and money, and to optimize the process. Dimensional engineering, right? It simplifies gauging requirements. So when I say gauging requirements is the measurement. We need the measurement tooling. We need measurement check fixtures, holding fixtures, and all. So dimensional engineers guide the measurement plans to keep costs low and to make the process robust. So if there is a part or an assembly, so it will have numerous amount of features. The dimensional engineer decides what are the features, key features which he has to measure to make sure the end outcomes, right? So when we discuss like gap and flush, so they will be dependent on some key features in a product. So he makes sure only those features are measured to save time and cost. Because if there are like 1,000 features in a part, it won't be necessary to measure all of them. Like 100% checks. I mean, like if you measure 100 parts, you won't need to measure them all the 1,000 features in all the 100 parts. So there will mostly be like maybe 10 key features we need to measure to satisfy the end goal like gap flush, the functional requirements. So this is the role of a dimensional engineer. He suggests the production, the manufacturing engineers that these are the key features we need to measure. So that's how the gauging requirements are being derived from. So he plays a very important role. Dimensional engineer, he or she plays a very important role in this sector. And then the dimensional engineers, GAT and dimensional engineers help in it simplifies tolerance analysis. So in dimensional engineering, we need to do all the tolerance stackups, and there are many other external factors which affect the tolerance analysis. Like to simplify the design process, a dimensional engineer can apply a concept called as bonus tolerancing. So this is one of the concepts which comes in GT&T, where you can allot bonus tolerancing if something goes outside the spec. Even then, the product can be accepted. So this is a bonus tolerance concept which comes in GT&T, which helps in simplifying the tolerance analysis. And then the other aspects are like thermal expansion, right? So if in room temperature a product might be of the same size, but some metals, right? Some metals or even some plastics, right? They expand and contract with respect to temperature. So that's where the dimensions change, right? So the features they might get loose. There might be a functional requirement that there should be not be any friction or squeaking. So these are all the external. This is one of the external aspects which dimensional take care of in the tolerance analysis. And then there are loading scenarios where a product has a load range, right? From if a bike has a load range of 100 to 200 kgs, uh, then that has to be considered in tolerance analysis. And then if there are many parts which are non-rigid, right? So the change in their shape and size when the load has been applied. So those are not rigid. So these are the different aspects which you need to apply. So these are all the different advantages which you can apply. So once you apply, even then, after all applying of this, once there are issues which arise in manufacturing, So the manufacturing engineers or the production or the design engineers, they look for dimensional engineers at some point where they need some solutions from your end. So dimensional engineers can apply all these skill sets to root cause the issues and to find the culprit. And then all the engineers can concentrate on that issue. So many a times in production, what happens is if something goes wrong, the Herculean task is finding the the contributors, like which are the parts which are contributing, contributing for the end failure or a defect, or which is not being satisfying the end design intent. So this root cause process, so it requires a lot of skill sets, experience. So dimensional engineers are also involved in these troubleshooting root cause teams. So this is also an advantage of having all these skill sets. You might be asking, okay, so these are the advantages. This is what we do. This is what we need to learn. And then where do we exactly fit in a company, right? So what is the what is the place we hold in the company? So dimensional engineers, right? It's a quite cross-functional role. So dimensional engineers support in design, that is the first like an initial stages, and then prototyping, pre-production, and in production phases of a product life cycle. So it's a very quite a cross-functional role which dimensional engineers play. So what are the so if you can see the picture on the screen here. So first, when an idea comes to a company, right? So if they want to manufacture something, so it's an abstract, that's a concept. So and then craftsmanship design it, right? So whatever the craftsmanship, that's a clay model or just a sketch on a software. And then then product designers, that is the design engineers. So they design the surfacing and then the attachment points and all the whole CAD in the softwares. And then they send dimension engineers to design GD&T. So GD&T in GD&T, so that's when dimension engineers come in play. So they communicate between craftsmanship and design. So they interplay a role between them. So when a design engineer approaches a dimensional engineer, he asks for some of the basic documents. He asks for is to create GD&T, that's the geometrical dimensioning and tolerancing. So once a design engineer has a CAD, so he wants to know like what is he wants to know the layout of the GD&T, right? So that he can design the next product which goes along with it. So if the product needs to attach to another product, so it needs surface, it needs attachment points, like a whole slot surface, right? So that interaction, right? That interaction is a relationship. So that relationship is being defined in GD&T drawings. So that's when dimensional engineer comes in play. So when a dimensional engineer is planning GD&T, dimension tolerancing and dimension and tolerancing, so first of all he needs to decide on datums, and then the manufacturing sequence, the dimensions of the features, which is a part of the product, and then tolerancing. Tolerancing, then again, it goes a lot of study in terms of what material they are using in the product manufacturing, to what part it is getting attached to. So these are all the aspects which goes into deciding all these things. And then once the design is concrete, it passes all the CAE, all the tests in other dynamics, all other aspects in manufacturing, in design process. And then once it goes to manufacturing, so dimensional engineers support manufacturing engineers in designing the chuck fixtures, in tooling, and then he verifies if the design process is going according to the GD&T or not, and then he verifies gauging processes, and then ultimately in quality control, like he takes care of dimensional engineer analyzes, the data reporting, like how we are controlling the end results, how are we meeting the design intent in the end, right? So he helps in analysis part two. These are the cross-functional roles which design dimensional engineer plays in manufacturing. So some of the most important were, as we discussed, and then in manufacturing, dimensional engineers even plan, the measurement scheme, create measurement plan. That is, as we discussed before, dimensional engineer decides like what are the key features that needs to measure. So that comes in the manufacturing itself. Once the product is manufactured, it goes to the metrology, and then that's where they measure the sample size of the parts. to make sure we're building according to the spec. So that's been guided by dimensional engineers. So now we come to the all the skills, right? All the four skills we talked about in the slide too. So what are the skills we need to know before we enter this field? So one of the first basic is GD&T. So GD&T has geometrical dimensioning and tolerancing. So one of the widely used standards, there are many standards, ISO. The other one which is widely used is ASME Y14.5 2009. It's been this is the previous one. The most latest is 2018. So that's the latest standard. So they revise now and then. ASME is American Society for Mechanical Engineers. They design a standard which has been circulated, which is an open source document anybody can download online. So that has a standard how GD&T should be communicated. What are the most important factors, right? Just the salient features of what how to interpret, right? In GD&T, the most basic part is like deciding on datums. So this is being decided by dimensional engineers. So datums are nothing but a fixed starting point of operation. So datums can be primarily like a whole slot, line, or surface. So it needs a starting point, GD&T, right? So if you select features, right? Primary, secondary, tertiary. So these are terminologies which will come across. So there will be like primary datum, secondary datum, tertiary for most parts. Datum selection is one of the key skills. Second thing we should be doing is dimensioning. So dimensioning is if there's any feature, so if there are any key features, you need to dimension them. Like what is the dimension of the length, breadth, diameter, radii, fillet size. So there will be like key aspects which you need to maintain, right? So they need to be explicitly called out in a drawing. And then there is tolerancing. So once you call out a dimension, so if you say the width is 100 meters, 100 millimeters of some part, so that cannot be like 125 millimeters or 75 millimeters or 60 millimeters. So this needs to be within a range, right? If a width of a part is 100 millimeters, so you by doing the tolerance stack up, you decide that it can only vary plus or minus 2 millimeters, saying it can be 1 or 2 millimeters or 98 millimeters. So this is a variation. That's the tolerance. So that's what you do. That's the next step, and then you identify features. Features is like you identify key features. What are the important features which needs to be within the spec, which are very important to control in a part. That's the next step. And when you do all this, the datum dimensioning tolerance features, right? So all the dimensioning engineers mostly they try to optimally constrain. So this will be the term which will come across. So the part cannot be over constrained as well as very leniently constrained. It has to be optimally constrained. So just to put this into perspective, say as we discussed, like the width of a part is 100 millimeters. So you're saying the tolerance is plus or minus 2 millimeters. So that's the range it can vary. At some parts, right, they have a certain inherent tolerance to them, because when a part goes to manufacturing using certain materials, they cannot be very constrained. They cannot be manufactured within narrow tolerances, say 100 millimeters plus or minus 0.001 mm. So that is over constrained, so that a manufacturer cannot manufacture that. So this is what I meant by optimally constrained. So these are all the aspects which you need to know. I think it comes by experience. When you start doing like different materials processes, you should have a background of manufacturing processes too, like what they are using, whether it's a molded part, whether it's a casted, molded, whether it's a casted or a stamped part. They're using what kind of material, that is, are they using a plastic ABS or aluminum, steel? So these are all the aspects which come into which will help you in laying out a GD&T. So so once you know GD&T, right, so it even helps you in it's a prerequisite knowledge to carry out stack up studies. So dimensional engineering is often asked to do stack up studies. So what is a stack up? So it's just like a stack of books, right? So there are like, if you keep a book one over the other, right? There is some height to it. So consider each book as an individual part, and each part has a tolerance. So there are some studies like 1D, 3D stack analysis. where you can do stack each part, right? So if there are 10 parts which goes into a sub assembly, so each part is considered individually and added up. So there are techniques called RSS, root sum square, and then there is a in computer software you use Monte Carlo simulation. So there is a mathematical background to the stack analysis. So to undergo all these studies or be part of a company or part of the studies or to understand stack up analysis, GD&T information, GD&T knowledge will be quite helpful.